She arrived at the Achebe Holdings building on Bourdion Road in Victoria Island at 9:03 on a Tuesday morning, wearing a brown dress she had ironed with a borrowed iron the night before, and canvas boots she had wiped clean with a damp cloth at 8 a.m. in the compound outside her room in Mushin. She had come by Danfo and walked the last 5 blocks so she would not arrive sweating. She stood at the reception desk and gave her name to the woman whose name tag read Blessing. Blessing looked at the dress before she looked at the face. She had not been told what the meeting was about. She had been told only that Chief Emeka Achebe wanted to see her, and that she was to come on Tuesday, and that she was to come alone. She did not yet know that the name on the glass wall behind the reception desk was also on the laminated card she kept in a small pouch around her, against her collarbone, and had kept there for 12 years. Her name was Nkachi Okafor. She was 27 years old and weighed 108 pounds. She had weighed 119 pounds 2 years ago, before she took the street cleaning position. The difference was not illness. It was the calculation she ran every month: 42,000 naira salary, 28, sent home to her mother in Aba for dialysis contributions, and her brother Emmanuel's secondary school fees, 14,000 naira remaining for transport, food, and rent in the room she shared with 2 other women. On shift days she ate once ajij bread and groundnut paste at the roadside stall near the depot at 4:20 in the morning before she signed in. She had been sweeping streets in Lagos for 2 years and 4 months. Before that, she had worked as a data entry clerk at a logistics company in Apapa for 3 years, but the company had closed in 2022, and the cleaning authority had been the first posting that did not require professional certification she could not afford to renew. She held a degree in accounting from Nnamdi Azikiwe University. She had graduated in 2018, third in her class, but the examination fees for the Icon Professional Certification had been beyond what she could manage for 4 consecutive years. She had the textbook. She studied when she could. She carried it to work in a black nylon bag along with her water bottle and a spare pair of cotton socks. It was the textbook she had been reading at the roadside stall near the Balagan bus stop at 6:17 in the morning, when a man who introduced himself only as Toby had sat down beside her on the bench and said, without preamble, "What chapter is that?" She had told him auditing standards. He said he had failed that section twice on his own professional exams years ago. She had looked at him, tall, in a plain gray t-shirt with no logo, eating a meat pie from waxed paper the way a person eats when they are not thinking about being seen, and she had not known then, or for several months afterward, whose son he was. What she wore to her shifts was a faded orange reflective vest over whatever dress she had clean, and steel-toed rubber boots that were 2 sizes too wide and which she padded with folded cloth at the heel. What she wore on this Tuesday was the brown dress, the canvas boots, and the small leather pouch on a cord around her neck that had belonged to her father. The pouch held a laminated ID card. The card bore her father's name, Patrick Okafor, and his employee number, and the name of the company he had worked for as a construction site foreman for 9 years. He had been proud of that card. He had held it out to her when she was a small girl and told her it meant he was a skilled man, a man who built things. She had been 15 years old when he died on a site in Lekki. She had worn the pouch for 12 years. Her goal was specific and did not change. Her mother's dialysis cost 85,000 naira a month at the government hospital in Aba. Her mother's thrift cooperative had been supplementing what Nkechi sent, but cooperative lending is not indefinite, and the terms were tightening. Emmanuel was in SS2. He needed his wake registration fees and 2 outstanding school levies, 67,000 naira total, due before April. She had not told Toby any of this in the way that people perform their suffering. She had told him she was studying, that she had a plan, that she was not where she intended to stay. She said it the way a person says something they know to be true and do not need anyone else to confirm. Chief Emeka Achebe was 68 years old and had built his construction and real estate company across 4 decades, beginning with a single earth mover on a site in Ojota in 1984. Achebe Holdings now owned property on 4 islands and had completed contracts across 7 states. He was compact with a shaved head gone gray at both temples, and he wore agbada for formal occasions and plain dress shirts in his office with the top button undone, which his staff understood to mean he was in a working mood and not a ceremonial one. He had been married once to Toby's mother, who had died of cancer in 2014. He ran his household with the same structural attention he brought to his company, And when Toby sat across from him at the dinner table in the Banana Island house on a Sunday evening in late February and told him about Nkechi, who she was where they had met, what he intended, Chief Achebe had listened to the entire account without once interrupting, which was not a good sign. He waited until Toby was finished. Then he said, "A street cleaner." Toby said she was a university graduate studying for professional certification, that she was the most serious person he had encountered in years, that this was not a conversation he was having lightly. Chief Achebe said, "Bring her to my office on Tuesday." His nephew Ikenna was at that table. Ikenna had heard everything. When the conversation ended and Chief Achebe went inside, Ikenna poured himself more water from the glass jug on the table, looked at Toby for a moment and said nothing. He picked up his phone. He said nothing. Blessing, whose full name was Blessing Nwosu, who had been Chief Achebe's executive receptionist for 7 years, had processed the Tuesday appointment with efficient indifference. She had scheduled 10 a.m. for Nkechi. When Nkechi arrived at 9:30 and gave her name, Blessing looked up from her screen, looked at the dress, looked back at the screen, and said the chief was not yet available. She gestured toward the lobby chairs and returned to her keyboard. The lobby had low leather chairs, a water dispenser with a column of small plastic cups, and a wall of glass behind which the upper floors could be partially glimpsed. Nkechi sat in the chair nearest the door. She watched 2 men in tailored suits pass through without stopping at the desk. She watched a woman in heels carry a set of bound documents to reception and leave in under a minute. At 10:23, Blessing said the chief was still in a meeting. At 11:47, Blessing said it would be. Shortly, Nkechi's water bottle had been empty since 11. She had not asked for anything from the dispenser. The plastic cup column stood 4 feet from where she sat, and she did not touch it. At 11:57, Blessing said the chief would see her now. 2 hours and 54 minutes after she had arrived. Chief Achebe's office was on the 8th floor, with windows looking out over Victoria Island toward the Bight of Benin. The desk was large and uncluttered, and there were 2 chairs placed in front of it. He did not stand when she came in. He looked at her the way a man looks at a document he is deciding whether to sign. He asked her to sit. He said he would be direct. He said Toby was 32 years old with responsibilities to the company and the family's legacy, responsibilities that required a partner who could occupy a specific kind of position in the world. He was not insulting her, he said. He was being realistic. She said she understood he was being realistic. He asked what her family situation was. She told him. Her mother was in ABBA and on dialysis. Her brother was in SS2. Her father had passed away some years ago. He asked what her father did. She said he was a construction site foreman. Something shifted in Chief Achebe's face at that. Not much, just a tightening at the jaw, and he asked no further question about her father. He moved on. He told her he was prepared to facilitate an arrangement. He pushed a white envelope across the desk. He said the amount inside was 4.5 million naira, and that it was hers, and that the only condition was that she end contact with Toby and build whatever future she chose to build elsewhere. He said it with the tone of a man who has made offers like this before and has always had them accepted. She looked at the envelope. She did not pick it up. She said she appreciated his concern for his son. She said she had never asked Toby for anything and had not intended to. She said she was not for sale. Chief Achebe put the envelope back in his desk drawer. He told her then, and this was when the floor shifted, that her cleaning contract was issued through a municipal authority that had ties to several private contractors, and that the renewal of her position at the end of her current 12-month cycle was not guaranteed. He said it without emphasis, the way a man states a fact he has already arranged. She understood it before she could name what she understood. She took the danfo back to Mushin and did not eat that night. She sat on the edge of the bed and ran the numbers. 42,000 naira salary. If the contract was not renewed, 0. If 0, her mother's cooperative contribution would reach its limit within 2 months. Emmanuel's wake fees were due in 6 weeks. She had 9,800 naira in her account. She held the pouch against her chest and pressed it there, and did not sleep until nearly 3 a.m. The street she swept the following morning, the Bodillon stretch between the Onaken roundabout and the Marina gates, was 3 kilometers of asphalt she had walked 12 times in 2 years and 4 months. She knew every pothole by position and depth. She knew where the storm drain backed up after heavy rain and where the delivery trucks that parked before 5 a.m. left oil in the same patch every morning. At that hour, the air smelled of sea and diesel and something faintly sweet from the compound walls where night-blooming flowers had opened in the dark and had not yet closed. The marina at 5 a.m. was the color of old iron under the toll road lamps, and the sound of the water against the embankment came in irregular intervals between the passes of the early trucks. The broom made a sound she had stopped hearing deliberately. The way you stop hearing the clock in a room you sleep in, though, she could feel it through both hands. The resistance of the bristles against grit, the lighter drag where the asphalt was already clean. The generators inside the compounds ran their low constant note. A delivery truck went past without slowing, and the driver dropped a water sachet from the window without looking. She had received sachets from 3 different drivers across 2 years. She had never seen their faces clearly. She always waved. At 6:20, a woman who ran a provision kiosk at the far end of the route came out and set a cup of hot tea on the kiosk counter without being asked. She did it every Thursday. Her name was Mama Chisum, and she had been watching this girl for 2 years with the attention of someone who recognizes something in a person that the person has not yet seen in themselves. She said as Nkechi took the cup, "Something is wrong today." Nkechi said she was fine. Mama Chisum said, "I didn't ask if you were fine." If this story is already sitting in your chest the way I think it is, subscribe now, because what Mama Chisum says next is the thing that changes the entire direction of everything that follows. Toby called that evening. He said he had spoken to his father. He said he had made it clear that he was not changing his mind, and that his father had listened, which he considered progress. Nkechi asked what listen meant in practical terms. Toby said it meant no one had been thrown out of the house yet. She wanted to believe it. You believe things the way you believe forecasts when you have already started the journey. For 3 days, nothing happened. She swept her route on Thursday and Friday. On Saturday afternoon, Toby came to the depot with jollof rice in a black plastic bag, and they ate sitting on the low wall outside the side gate, and he told her about a project in Abuja, and she told him about an auditing question she had been stuck on for 2 weeks, and it was an ordinary afternoon. She let herself think the afternoon was a sign of something. On Monday morning at 9:41, the cleaning authority's operational supervisor came to the depot and called her aside. He gave her a letter in a plain white envelope without meeting her eyes. It was 2 short paragraphs in procedural language. Her contract renewal assessment had been reviewed. A determination had been made. Her last working day was the 15th of March, 19 days away. She did not go to Toby immediately. She sat in the depot's back storage room for 23 minutes with the letter on her lap. Then she folded it into her bag and finished the last 40 minutes of her shift. On her way out, she stopped at Mama Chisum's kiosk. Mama Chisum was arranging a delivery of canned goods behind the counter. She looked at Nkechi and did not ask a question. She pulled a low stool from behind the counter and put it on the pavement and said, "Sit." Nkechi sat. She told her everything. The lobby, the 2 hours and 54 minutes, the look at the dress before the face, the envelope she did not pick up, the meeting that ended before she had asked a single question of her own, the letter in her bag, the 9,800 naira in her account. Mama Chisum listened without expression, the way people listen when they are not surprised. When Nkechi finished, the older woman set down the can she was holding and folded both hands on the counter. "A Chibi Holdings," she said. She did not say it as a question. Nkechi said, "Yes, construction and real estate, one of the largest companies in Lagos." Mama Chisum was quiet for a moment. Then, "My husband worked on the Lekki Fisestu site in 2012, before I came to this kiosk. He died of a chest infection 2 years after the accident on that site. From the dust, the doctor said, though the company did not agree. 3 men died on the site in October of 2012. The families filed compensation claims. The company's legal team sent letters for 31 months. Nobody received anything." Nkechi was still. "One of the 3 men," Mama Chisum said, "was a foreman. His name was Patrick Okafor." The generator in the compound across the road stopped. The street went quiet in a way that made the morning feel different from any morning she could remember. Nkechi touched the pouch at her collarbone without deciding to. "I've looked at that card around your neck more than 100 times. Mama Chisum said, "I know the name on it. I didn't say anything because I couldn't find the right words, and then because I was afraid of what the words would do. And then you told me who his son is." She reached beneath the counter and brought out a plastic folder that was yellowed at the edges with one bent metal clip. Inside was a document, 6 pages, with the Achibi Construction Limited letterhead at the top of page 1 and a signature block at the bottom of page 6. This was the last letter the company sent. January 2015. After this, my husband kept it. When he died, I kept it. The letter stated, in the language of legal procedure, that the company's liability in the October 2012 Lekki Phase 2 incident had been determined to be limited, that the claimant's appeals were not supported by available documentation, and that the company considered the matter fully resolved. It was dated 17 months before Achibi Holdings had recorded its highest annual revenue, 1 billion naira in completed contracts across that fiscal year. Nkechi read it. She held the plastic folder and read it twice and did not speak. She had been 15 when her father died. Her mother had told her only that the company said it was not their fault and that they could not afford to keep fighting. She had never been told there was a formal claim. She had never been told there was a letter. She had been wearing his ID card for 12 years against her collarbone, without knowing the full name of what had been done to him. What do we do with this, she said. Mama Chisholm said, I've been asking that question for 11 years. I think the answer walked into my kiosk 2 years ago. Chief Achieves investigator, a man named Ize, who handled background searches for the company, on new business contacts and occasionally on personal matters, delivered his full report on Nkechi Okafor 9 days after the Tuesday meeting. The report was 11 pages. It covered her educational record, employment history, family composition, current address, and the name and history of her late father. Chief Achibi read to page 6 and stopped. He read page 6 again. He told Ize to leave the room and did not take calls for the next 2 hours. Then he called his head of legal, Mrs. Adeze Ugwu, who had been with the company for 16 years, and told her to pull all files related to the October 2012 Lekki Phase 2 site incident. Every claim, every letter, every legal response and counter-response, everything. He wanted it on his desk by morning. The documents were there at 7:44 a.m. He read through 214 pages over the course of 4.5 hours. He did not ask anyone to summarize. He read them himself, the way a man reads something he has spent years making sure he did not have to read. What they showed was not complicated. 3 men had died. 3 families had made formal compensation claims, each legally sound and properly documented. The company's legal team had deployed 7 procedural objections across 31 months to delay, reduce, and finally extinguish the claims without a single full hearing. The total value avoided across all 3 families was 21.6 million naira. In the year the final denial letter was sent, Achibi Construction had completed the Eco-Atlantic Drainage Infrastructure contract, its largest single project, for a sum that made 21.6 million naira look like a rounding error on a quarterly report. Chief Achibi set the last page down. He sat in his office for a long time without making a call. Then he called Mrs. Ugwu back in and told her he wanted 3 things prepared. Independent valuations of the original compensation entitlements adjusted for 12 years of inflation, formal settlement proposals for each of the 3 affected families, and a draft framework for a permanent workers' safety compensation fund to be established under the Achibi Holdings umbrella with an independent oversight board. He told her to begin that day. He did not explain why, and she was experienced enough not to ask. On a Thursday morning 11 days after Nkechi's contract termination letter, a car from Achibi Holdings arrived at the Cleaning Authority depot on Ijora Causeway at 8:30 a.m. and delivered a letter addressed to the operational supervisor, CC to the Lagos State Ministry of Environment. The letter stated that the non-renewal determination issued against staff reference number NK071, Nkechi Okafor, had been found to be procedurally irregular and was revoked with immediate effect. Her contract was reinstated. The supervisor read it twice, then called her number. She heard the words. She sat down on the low wall outside the depot gate and did not speak for almost 2 minutes. 3 days after that, she was asked to return to the Achibi Holdings building on Bourdion Road. This time when she arrived and gave her name, Blessing looked up and said, "Please go to the 4th floor. They are expecting you." No wait, no gesture toward the lobby chairs. She was taken directly upstairs. Chief Achibi was already in the 4th floor meeting room when she arrived. Mrs. Ugwu sat to his right with a folder on the table in front of her. He did not stand. He looked at Nkechi the way a man looks at something he has made himself look at without looking away. He placed a second folder on the table and pushed it toward her. He said, This should have been done 12 years ago. The folder was 47 pages. It contained a settlement agreement for the Okafor family, valued at 4 million naira. The original claim restated and adjusted for inflation at a rate certified by an independent financial auditor. A separate line item covered her mother's outstanding dialysis costs as documented by the Aba government hospital, running 85,000 naira per month for the previous 19 months. A further clause covered Emmanuel's wake registration, his outstanding school levies, and his first year of post-secondary education if he chose to continue. And it contained a 4-page letter from Mrs. Ugwu addressed to all three of the affected families, the Okafors, the Chisholms, and the Eze Okoronkwo family, which acknowledged the company's full legal and moral responsibility for what had been done in 2012 and in the 31 months that followed. Nkechi read the first 3 pages without looking up. Then she looked up. Chief Achebe said nothing. He had said what he needed to say with the folder and with the 6 words before it. He had spent 4.5 hours reading 214 pages of his own company's history and had come to understand that some things cannot be undone, only accounted for and settled and carried forward differently. He was in the early stages of learning the difference between those things. She did not speak for a moment. She pressed 2 fingers flat against the pouch at her collarbone, held them there, and then she reached across the table and signed the first page. Toby was in the building. He had been there all morning, in an office 3 doors down, waiting. He came into the room when it was done and looked at his father in a way that required no words. Chief Achebe said quietly, almost to himself as much as to his son, "She didn't take the 4.5 million. He said it not as a compliment. He said it as an accounting of character. The way a man of business acknowledges when he has read something incorrectly, not even to save her mother." He picked up his copy of the folder and went back to his office. Chief Emeka Achebe thought he had been called to make a judgment about who was worthy to enter his family. What he discovered, across 214 pages of documents he had not read in 12 years, was that he was the one who had failed a judgment, one that had been administered without ceremony in October 2012 when 3 men died on one of his sites, and 3 families came to him with claims that were legally sound and morally clear, and his company's legal machinery made those claims disappear through the precise application of procedural patience. He had not read those letters when they were sent. He had trusted the process and signed the revenue reports, and told himself that his legal team understood the line between liability and legitimacy. He had been wrong about that for 12 years, and it had taken his son falling in love with the daughter of one of those 3 men for the file to come back to his desk. The world runs a continuous accounting that most people are not aware of. You can close a file. You can send a final letter and mark a matter resolved. You can sign off on a quarterly report that makes a family's lost future look like a rounding error. The accounting does not stop. It accumulates interest in ways you cannot predict. In a girl who carries her father's ID card for 12 years against her collarbone, without knowing the full story written on it. In an older woman who keeps a 6-page letter under a bent metal clip for 11 years in a kiosk at the end of a street cleaning route, because she believes that one day a proper accounting will arrive. Some debts do not disappear when they are denied. They wait. They find their way to the surface through doors you never expected to open, on days you were looking for something else entirely. You cannot always choose when the reckoning comes, or through what door, but you can choose what you do when the file is on your desk, and you have read to page 6 and you understand, for the first time without looking away, what was actually done in your name. The Achebe Holdings Workers' Safety Compensation Fund was formally established on the 1st of May of that year, capitalized at 500 million naira, with an independent oversight board that included a representative from the Lagos State Construction Workers Cooperative. The first disbursement session was held in the Achebe Holdings ground floor conference room, 2 floors below where Blessing's desk sat, in the building where a woman in a brown dress had once waited 2 hours and 54 minutes without being offered a cup of water. Nkechi Okafor was not at that session. She was at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University registration portal, completing her ICANN examination enrollment for the April sitting. Her fees had been paid. Her textbook, the one with the dog-eared pages and the missing back cover, bought for 400 naira at a second-hand stall near Ojolegba, was open on the desk beside her. She had a yellow strip of paper marking page 214. She had not moved it since October. Her mother's next dialysis appointment was confirmed. Emmanuel's wake registration was complete. The pouch around her neck still held her father's ID card. It always would. Before I let you go today, I want to leave you with a question that I have been sitting with since I finished this story. Chief Achebe settled what was owed not because he chose to seek out the people he had wronged. He settled it because his son fell in love with the right woman, and the truth walked into his building on a Tuesday morning in a brown dress he looked past and sat in his lobby for nearly 3 hours before he agreed to see it. And Ketchy received what her family was legally and morally owed, not as charity, not as a gift, but as a restitution that came 12 years late and through a door nobody planned to open. If what was taken from your family finally came back to you, but only because of a coincidence, not because the person responsible went looking for you, would it still feel like justice? Or would it feel like something else? And does the answer change anything about whether you accept it? Leave your answer in the comments. I want to read every one of them. Subscribe for more stories about hidden strength, quiet power, and the people this world overlooks until they can no longer be overlooked. I'll see you in the next one.